What have I become? 3 months ago, my life looked perfect from the outside. The kind of perfect people envy and quietly resent. Cameras flashing, charity galas, political dinners where powerful men lowered their voices when my husband entered the room. Min Tae-joon isn't just another rich heir anymore. He's running for president now. The golden son of a Chaebol dynasty stepping into politics, promising reform, shaking hands, giving speeches, smiling for cameras until midnight. And a presidential campaign doesn't leave room for a wife. Every morning he's gone before sunrise. Strategy meetings, donors, televised debates, party leaders whispering behind closed doors. Every night he returns long after the city falls asleep, smelling like expensive cologne and exhaustion, collapsing into bed without a word. Weeks pass like that. A mansion full of staff, security in every hallway, a schedule packed with public appearances where I stand beside him, smiling like the flawless political wife the country expects. But behind the cameras? Silence. Loneliness echoes through 20 empty rooms. And somewhere in that silence, someone else started noticing me. That's when Kang Joon-ho entered my life. And that's when everything began to fall apart. What have I become?
The threat arrived in a plain envelope slipped under the penthouse door at 4:12 a.m. No stamp, no return address, just a single photo of Ji-yeon stepping out of a black SUV, time-stamped 2 nights earlier, red circle drawn around her throat like a promise. Tae-joon stared at it over coffee, face calm, voice flat. We bring in outside security, someone who doesn't owe the family anything. Ji-yeon set her cup down. He's protecting the image, not me. Kang Joon-ho arrived at 700. Tall enough the foyer felt smaller. Lean frame under a black long-sleeve shirt, sleeves rolled once, silver stud in his left ear catching the morning light. He didn't bow, didn't smile. Just looked at her, direct, assessing, like she was the perimeter he had to secure. Principal, he said. One word, no honorific. Her spine stiffened. Tae-joon shook his hand. Keep her breathing, that's the job. Joon-ho's eyes never left her face. Understood. The first ride was silent. Back seat of the armoured Mercedes. Partition up. Driver dismissed on his order. He sat beside her, not across. Thigh close enough she felt the heat through fabric. She crossed her legs. You don't need to sit this close. You don't need to pretend you're not the target. His voice low, rough, no apology. She turned to the window. He speaks like he already knows my secrets. At the first campaign stop, Gangnam Tower lobby, donors waiting, Joon-ho shadowed her 3 steps back. When a photographer stepped too close, he moved. One hand on the man's shoulder, gentle pressure. The camera lowered instantly. Ji-yeon glanced back. He met her eyes. No triumph, just fact. Later, in the elevator alone, she broke the silence. You didn't have to touch him. Habit. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. People forget boundaries when they want something. She studied him. And what do you want? He held her gaze. To finish the job. The doors opened. She stepped out first, hips swaying, aware of his eyes on her back the entire walk to the conference room. That night, Tae-joon came home late, kissed her cheek. "You were perfect today." She smiled. Perfect is easy when no one sees the cracks. Down the hall, Joon-ho's light stayed on until 3 a.m. She passed the guest suite on her way to the kitchen for water. Door cracked. He sat at the small desk, reviewing feeds on a tablet. Shirt untucked now, sleeves still rolled. He looked up. "Trouble sleeping?" She paused in the doorway. "Habit." He set the tablet down. "Come in." She didn't move. "Why?" "Because you're standing in the hall like you're waiting for permission." Her pulse kicked. She stepped inside, closed the door halfway. He stood, closed the distance in 2 strides, stopped just short of touching her. "You're not used to being watched this closely," he said. "I'm used to being invisible to the people who matter." His jaw flexed. "I see you." The air thickened. She lifted her chin. "Then stop looking." He didn't. "You first." She exhaled, sharp, turned to leave. His hand caught her wrist, light, not restraining, just enough to hold her. Ji-yeon. She froze at her name in his mouth. Low, rough, like a secret he shouldn't know. He released her. "Good night." She walked out, heart hammering. Back in the master bedroom, Tae-joon slept soundly. She slid under the sheets, stared at the ceiling. He sees me, and I hate how much I want him to keep looking. The threat outside was real, but the one inside the penthouse felt sharper, and it had just learned her name. The campaign trail opened in Busan the following week. Tae-joon needed the southern block locked before the exploratory committee announcement. Ji-yeon orchestrated every detail. Speeches that made him sound visionary instead of ruthless. Photo ops with dock workers who would never trust him. Quiet dinners with local bosses who still remembered the Min family's old debts. She moved through the schedule like armor. Navy sheath dress hugging her curves, heels striking authority, smile measured to disarm. Donors stared. Reporters scribbled. Tae-joon rested a hand on her lower back for the cameras and forgot to remove it when the flashes stopped. Joon-ho shadowed her the entire time. 3 paces behind, always. Black shirt, sleeves rolled, silver stud catching stage lights when he scanned rooftops. He never touched her in public, never needed to. One glance and her pulse dropped low. They rode in the second SUV. Tae-joon took the lead car with advisors. Protocol. Partition up. Rain streaked the windows. Silence held for 20 minutes, then seatbelt. His voice cut the quiet. Low. Command. She clicked it, kept eyes on her tablet. He notices everything, even when I pretend I don't notice him. "You're tense," he said. "Campaign stress. You're thinking about last night." Her fingers froze on the screen. She looked up. He kept his eyes on the road, jaw tight. "Don't." "Don't what?" He merged onto the coastal highway. "Pretend I didn't see you walk past my door at 2 a.m. I was getting water. You stood in the doorway for 30 seconds. Heat climbed her neck. "You were counting?" "I count everything that moves near you." The words landed heavier than they should. She crossed her legs tighter. He's not flirting. He's warning me. He pulled off at a rest stop. Engine idled. Rain hammered the roof. Ji-yeon stared straight ahead. "We have a dinner in 40 minutes. Plenty of time. He killed the engine, turned in the seat, faced her fully. Tall enough, even seated, he loomed. "Come here." 2 words, absolute. Her body moved before logic caught up. She unbuckled, climbed over the console, straddled his lap. The car rocked once. His hands settled on her thighs, firm, grounding. "You're shaking," he said. "I'm not." Liar. His thumb traced the hem of her dress, slow, deliberate, not advancing, just reminding. "You walked into that penthouse last night smelling like rain and guilt," he murmured. Tae-joon didn't notice. He never does. Joon-ho's grip tightened. He should. She met his eyes. "Don't make this about him. It already is." He leaned in, mouth near her ear, breath warm. "Every time he cancels dinner, every time he kisses your cheek like it's protocol, I see the fracture widen, and I want to step into it." Her breath hitched. "You can't." "I know." He lifted her off his lap, set her back in the passenger seat, started the engine. "Fix your lipstick." She did. Hands steady now. The mirror showed a woman who looked composed. Inside, the storm raged. At the venue, Tae-joon greeted her with a kiss on the cheek. "You look flushed. Warm in the car?" She smiled, perfect, practiced. "Just the heater." Joon-ho stood at the entrance, scanning the room. When their eyes met across the crowd, he gave the smallest tilt of his head. Later. The promise was clear. Every second together was borrowed time. One wrong glance, one overheard whisper, one security camera catching the wrong angle. The threat from outside was real, old enemies circling. But the real danger stood 3 paces behind her, and she was already counting the minutes until the next rest stop, because defiance tasted sweeter than safety ever could. The night stretched long, and she was already ruined for tomorrow. The Lotte World Tower ballroom glittered like a trap set for the ambitious. Crystal chandeliers, fake laughter. Tae-joon at the center of the room, shaking hands with donors who smiled while calculating how much influence they could buy. Ji-yeon stood at his side, black velvet gown clinging to every curve, slit high enough to draw eyes and votes. She played the role flawlessly, touching his arm, laughing at the right moments, whispering corrections when his phrasing drifted. Joon-ho never left her orbit. Black suit, sleeves rolled beneath the jacket, silver stud hidden in shadow. He scanned the room, balconies, exits, every waiter's tray. His presence felt heavier tonight, like he already knew something she didn't. Halfway through the speeches, the lights flickered once. Tae-joon paused mid-sentence, laughed it off. Technical difficulties. We'll fix the future better than we fix the lights. Crowd chuckled. Ji-yeon didn't. She caught Joon-ho's eyes across the room. He gave a single, sharp head shake. Not technical. Then the crack split the air. Not loud, sharp. A single gunshot from the upper balcony. Panic exploded. Tae-joon's detail rushed him toward the side exit. Protocol, principle first. Joon-ho moved before the echo died. He slammed into Ji-yeon, arm around her waist, body curling over hers as he drove them both behind a marble pillar. Glass shattered overhead. Screams swallowed the room. He pressed her to the floor, gun drawn. Eyes scanning vents, doorways, panicked faces. His free hand cupped the back of her head, shielding. "You hit?" "No." His breath hot against her ear. "Stay down." Security dragged Tae-joon out. Ji-yeon watched his back disappear through the service door. Not once did he look back. Joon-ho hauled her up, One arm locked around her waist, gun steady. He pulled her through a side corridor, service tunnels, dim emergency lights. No words, just movement. They reached a panic room, reinforced door. He locked it, checked vents, then turned to her. Blood soaked his left sleeve, grazing wound, shallow but real. She stared at the red blooming through black fabric. You took that for me. I take what threatens my principat. His voice flat, but his hand shook once when he pressed gauze to the wound. Ji-yeon stepped closer. Let me. But he didn't argue. She peeled the sleeve back, cleaned the graze with the first aid kit on the wall. Her fingers brushed his skin, warm, scarred, alive. He watched her the entire time. You're shaking. Adrenaline. Liar. She met his eyes. I feel like a photograph in his campaign. Not real. Just necessary. Joon-ho. I've guarded people who forgot they were ever human. You're still bleeding inside. That counts. The words landed soft, dangerous. She finished bandaging him, didn't step back. His hand caught her wrist, light. You walked away from the stage without looking for him, she swallowed. He didn't look for me either. Silence stretched, thick. Joon-ho released her wrist, but his fingers lingered on her pulse point, feeling it race. Threats neutralized for now, he said. But they'll try again, and next time they might not miss. She nodded. Then keep watching me. His thumb traced one slow circle over her wrist. I already do. The door buzzed, secondary detail outside, safe to exit. Ji-yeon straightened her gown, smoothed her hair, fixed the mask. Joon-ho opened the door, stepped aside, let her pass first. In the hallway, Tae-joon waited, flanked by agents, face pale but composed. He pulled her into his arms, public embrace, cameras already rolling. You're safe, he murmured. She let him hold her, nodded against his shoulder, but over his back her eyes found Joon-ho, standing 3 paces away, bandage darkening under his sleeve, eyes locked on hers. No triumph, no jealousy, just quiet certainty. The line between them hadn't broken tonight. It had sharpened. And the next bullet, whether from a rival or from her own choices, would hit harder. She turned back to Tae-joon, smiled for the flashing lights. But inside, the fracture widened, and Joon-ho was already standing in it. The fundraiser aftermath lingered like smoke that refused to clear. Headlines called it a mechanical failure. Tae-joon's team spun it into proof of his resilience. Polls climbed. Donors wired more money. The exploratory committee gained momentum. Ji-yeon felt the shift in every room. Tae-joon came home earlier now, touched her shoulder when he passed, asked about her day like the question mattered. He was trying, genuinely trying, to stitch the distance closed. She let him, because guilt demanded it. Joon-ho stayed assigned, primary detail, 24/7. But the proximity turned brutal. Every glance across a crowded ballroom carried weight. Every clipped briefing in the back of the SUV felt like foreplay neither of them could admit. He fought it harder than she did, cancelled her detail twice. She overrode him both times, found excuses, new threat assessment needed in the basement gym, route review at 1 a.m. Walk me through the updated protocol, while Tae-joon slept 2 floors down. He pushed back. This ends careers. Yours, his, mine. She stepped closer. Then end mine first. One night after a Jeju stop, rain lashed the safe house windows. Tae-joon stayed in Seoul for donor calls. Driver dismissed. Partition up. Joon-ho locked the door, backed her against it. Hand at her throat, not squeezing, just holding, owning the space where her pulse raced. You want this? Say it. I want you to stop pretending you don't already have me. He kissed her then, fierce, desperate, like surrender he'd fought too long. She melted into it, hands in his hair, body arching against his. The rain drowned every sound. They didn't speak after, just breathed. Her head on his chest, his fingers tracing slow circles on her back. No promises, no lies, just the quiet admission that neither could walk away yet. The connection deepened in fragments. Stolen glances during briefings. A brush of fingers when he handed her a file. Late-night texts, location pins disguised as security updates. She answered every one. He never sent one without purpose, but the risk grew sharper. Tae-joon started noticing small things. You seem distracted lately, he said over dinner. She smiled. Campaign pressure. He nodded, but his eyes lingered longer than before. Joon-ho saw it too. In the SUV the next morning, he didn't sit beside her. Sat across, arms crossed. He's watching closer. I know. Then stop giving him reasons. She met his gaze. I can't. His jaw tightened. You will, or I walk. The threat landed clean. She felt the fracture widen, not between her and Tae-joon, between her and the man who refused to let her hide. That night she knocked on his door. He opened it, shirt untucked, sleeves rolled, eyes tired. She stepped inside without invitation, closed the door.
I'm not ready to stop. He exhaled. You never were. He pulled her close, kissed her slow this time, deep, like memorizing, hands framing her face. She leaned into it, soft, unguarded for once. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. This isn't sustainable. I know. Then why keep coming? Because with you, I remember who I was before I became his perfect wife. His thumb brushed her cheek. And who was that? Someone who wanted more than safety. Silence stretched. He stepped back. Get some rest. Tomorrow's a rally. Tae-joon will need you sharp. She nodded, turned to leave. At the door she paused. Joon-ho. He looked up. If you walk, I'll understand. He didn't answer, just watched her go. Back in the master bedroom, Tae-joon waited, awake, propped on pillows, reading a briefing. You were gone a while. Checking security with Agent Kang. He set the tablet aside, pulled her down beside him, kissed her temple. I'm glad you're safe. She let him hold her, closed her eyes, but the ache settled deeper, because safety felt smaller every day, and the man down the hall made her feel vast. The rally loomed tomorrow. Crowds, cameras, threats still circling. She would stand beside Tae-joon, smile for the future he promised, while the future she wanted stood 3 doors away and refused to let her pretend anymore. The fracture wasn't healing, it was spreading. and soon, something would have to break. The threat folded quietly. 2 weeks after the fundraiser, the cartel operatives confessed on the questioning. Low-level runners, no direct tie to the old Busan faction. The hit had been freelance, someone testing the Min family's resolve. Threat level dropped to amber. Secondary detail pulled back. Joon-ho requested reassignment the same afternoon. Paperwork filed before sunset. No discussion, no warning. Ji-yeon found the memo in the security log at 11:47 p.m. Single line, clean, effective immediately. She read it twice, then deleted it. Sat on the edge of the bed in the dark. Tae-joon slept beside her. Steady breathing, arm draped across the pillow she no longer used. He left because I wouldn't, bastard. Morning came sharp. Tae-joon woke her with coffee, kissed her forehead. I've cleared my schedule for the weekend. Just us. No calls, no briefings. She nodded, smiled the practiced smile. I'd like that. The penthouse felt smaller without Joon-ho's shadow in the halls. No cracked door at night. No light under the guest suite. No clipped voice saying principal like it was a secret only they shared. Tae-joon changed after the scare. He came home at 7 p.m. instead of midnight. Cooked simple meals, grilled fish, rice, banchan he remembered she liked. Sat with her on the terrace overlooking the Han River. Asked about her thoughts, not just her schedule. Touched her without agenda. Hand on her knee during dinner. Fingers threading through hers while they watched the city lights. One evening, he pulled her close on the couch. I almost lost you that night, he said quietly. I won't let that happen again. She let him kiss her, slow, familiar, safe. Her body responded, muscle memory. But her mind drifted to a man who'd never asked permission to claim space inside her thoughts. She grew restless in the quiet, started working longer hours on her own projects, policy papers she'd shelved years ago, ideas for education reform Tae-joon had never prioritized. She pitched them in private meetings, got nods, small wins, proof she still existed outside his orbit. Tae-joon noticed. You're different lately, he said one night. Good different? Stronger, he smiled. I like it. She smiled back. You should. You almost lost me to someone who saw it first. Joon-ho vanished clean. No trace in the logs after the reassignment. No forwarding contact. She checked once, discreetly, through old security channels. Nothing. The silence hurt more than the goodbye he never gave. 3 months passed. Tae-joon's exploratory committee launched officially. Seoul buzzed. Billboards, interviews, crowds chanting his name. He stood taller now, less the Chaebol air, more the man who'd stared down death and kept walking. Ji-yeon stood beside him at every event, poised, radiant, her influence visible in the sharper edges of his messaging, subtle shifts toward equity, education, the things she'd fought for in memos he used to skim. She felt the fracture heal, not completely, Scars remained, but she no longer bled every time Tae-joon touched her. The ache dulled to memory. Back at the penthouse, past midnight, Tae-joon fell asleep quickly, exhausted, content. Ji-yeon lay beside him, stared at the ceiling. At 2:47 a.m., her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She slipped out of bed, walked to the terrace, answered in the dark. Joon-ho's voice came through, rough, tired, familiar. Ji-yeon, her breath caught. Joon-ho. A pause. I saw the launch. You looked different, stronger. She closed her eyes. I am. Another pause. I never stopped thinking about you. Tears pricked. Don't. I tried. His voice cracked once, barely. Every perimeter, every room, you're there, on your knees in my memory, bent over a desk, wearing his tie, while I made you forget everything else. She pressed a hand to her mouth, muffled the sound. What do you want? What I've always wanted. Low, raw. You. A real chance. No empire. No threats. Just us. She looked back through the glass doors at Tae-joon asleep, silver hair on the pillow. The man who had stayed, who had rebuilt, who had never asked her to be less. She exhaled, shaky. You would have been everything 5 years ago. Silence stretched, long, painful. When he spoke, the fight was gone, just quiet defeat. I know. She swallowed. You didn't meet me at the wrong place. Another beat. You met me at the wrong time. He exhaled once, soft, final. Then the line went dead. She stood there, wind off the river cool on her skin. Tears fell silent. She walked back inside, slid under the sheets beside Tae-joon. He stirred. Arm came around her waist, pulled her close. She let him. Closed her eyes. The ache didn't disappear. It settled, deeper, quieter. A scar instead of an open wound. Because love wasn't always the fire that consumed. Sometimes it was the steady hand that rebuilt. Sometimes it was choosing the man who stayed to fix what broke. She pressed her lips to Tae-joon's shoulder, whispered into the dark, I'm here. He didn't wake, but she stayed. The phone stayed silent. And somewhere in the city, a tall shadow with a silver stud walked away from the Hanam-dong gates. He didn't look back, because he already knew. The woman he had once owned had chosen to be free, even if freedom tasted like memory. The machine kept turning, and for the first time in years, Ji-yeon turned with it, not as a piece, but as the one shaping the gears. Years passed, like pages turning in someone else's story. Tae-joon stood on the convention stage under blinding lights, party nomination secured, crowd roaring, confetti raining. The Blue House felt within reach now, closer than any poll had dared predict. He raised both hands, silver threading his temples, voice steady as he thanked the nation that had carried him this far. Ji-yeon stood at his right, black gown hugging her curves with quiet authority. Mid-40s sharpened her beauty, high cheekbones more defined, eyes deeper, presence heavier. She no longer smiled just to fill space. She smiled because she had earned the right. Her influence showed in the platform. Education reforms she had fought for in private memos, now part of the official agenda. She had become more than the perfect wife. She had become a force. Cameras flashed in waves. Reporters shouted questions. Supporters chanted his name. For one brief moment, her gaze drifted, almost accidental, to the security perimeter at the edge of the stage. Men in black suits, earpieces, scanners. Faces she didn't recognize. No tall silhouette. No lean frame cutting through the crowd. No silver stud catching the light. Just absence. Clean. Absolute. The crowd surged again. Tae-joon turned to her, took her hand, raised it high. The arena lost its mind. She squeezed back, met his eyes, saw the man who had stayed, who had rebuilt, who had never asked her to choose between the life they built and the one she almost ran toward. He leaned in, voice low amid the noise. We did this together. She nodded. We did. The lights burned brighter. Speeches ended. Handshakes began. Photos. More photos. Later, in the quiet of the green room, Tae-joon loosened his tie, looked at her like he still couldn't believe she was there. You were brilliant tonight, he said. She smiled, small, real. So were you. He pulled her close, kissed her forehead. I love you. She rested her head against his chest, listened to the steady beat beneath the fabric. I love you too. The words felt true now, not forced, not guilty, just true. Outside, the city kept moving. Seoul never slept, never forgave, never forgot. Somewhere in its shadows, a man with a silver stud still walked perimeters, cleared rooms, scanned faces, carried memories he never spoke aloud. He didn't look back, because looking back would mean admitting the woman he once claimed had chosen a different path. And she had, not out of weakness, but out of strength. She had chosen the man who rebuilt instead of the one who burned, chosen endurance over explosion, chosen a future she helped shape instead of a fire that would have consumed them both. The ache remained, quiet now. A scar that only hurt when the weather changed. A reminder that timing shapes us, but choices define us. Ji-yeon stepped back from Tae-joon, straightened her gown, lifted her chin. The doors opened. More cameras, more lights. She walked out beside her husband, hand in his, smiled for the nation. And inside, where no one could see, she carried the memory of a tall shadow who once made her feel vast. But she no longer needed to feel vast to feel whole. She was already enough. The machine kept turning, and she turned with it, not as a piece caught in the gears, but as the one who had learned how to move them. The lights flared brighter, the crowd roared on, and the story ended not with fire, but with quiet, deliberate light. Time did not heal, it layered. One season after another settled over the fracture, until the scar felt like part of the skin. Tae-joon won the nomination, then the election. The Blue House became home, not a palace, but a residence with too many rooms and too few private corners. Ji-yeon walked its halls with the same measured stride she once used in campaign corridors. She no longer stood 3 paces behind. She stood beside him, at state dinners, in policy briefings, international summits, where her voice carried weight on education and equity reforms she had quietly pushed through legislation. She had become more than the wife. She had become the architect. Tae-joon aged into the role with quiet dignity. Silver hair now fully claimed his temples. Lines around his eyes deepened from late nights and hard decisions. But he still reached for her hand under negotiation tables, still kissed her temple after long days, still asked her opinion first, before advisors, before aides. She answered honestly now, no longer filtering through what he wanted to hear. The nights grew peaceful. No more cracked doors, no more shadows in hallways. She slept beside him, arm across his chest, leg tangled with his, without guilt pulling her awake at 2 a.m. The ache remained, a low, steady note, like a song she once knew every word to, now hummed absent-mindedly. She thought of Joon-ho less, not never, just less. One evening, 3 years into the presidency, she stood on the private terrace overlooking Seoul. City lights spread below like scattered stars. Tae-joon joined her, hand on her lower back. "You've been quiet tonight." She leaned into him, remembering. He didn't ask who, just held her tighter. "I almost lost you once," he said. "Not to a bullet, to distance, my own." She turned, met his eyes. "You didn't lose me. You let me find myself." He kissed her then, slow, deep, familiar. The kiss of a man who had learned what he almost threw away. She kissed him back. No hesitation, no ghost between them. Later, in bed, he traced the curve of her shoulder. "You're happy?" She considered the question. Not the easy answer, the real one. "I'm content," she said. "And that's more than I expected." He smiled against her skin. "That's enough for me." She closed her eyes, felt the steady rhythm of his breathing. The ache stirred once, faint, distant. A memory of fire, not the burn itself. She let it pass. Morning came, briefings, calls, a state visit from Japan. She dressed in tailored navy, sharp lines, quiet power. Tae-joon watched her from the doorway. "You look like the woman who could run the country better than I do." She laughed, light, real. Maybe I will, one day. He stepped closer, kissed her forehead. I'd vote for you. She met his eyes in the mirror. I know. They walked out together, hand in hand down the corridor. Security detail flanking them, competent, anonymous faces. No tall silhouette, no silver stud, no low voice saying principal like a claim. Just absence, accepted now. In the briefing room, advisors waited, policy papers spread, decisions to make. Ji-yeon took her seat beside Tae-joon, opened the first folder. She no longer waited for permission to speak. She spoke, and the room listened. The machine kept turning, smoother now, less cruel. She turned with it, not caught in the gears, but guiding them. Somewhere in the city, or perhaps far beyond it, a man with a silver stud still walked perimeters, cleared rooms, carried memories he never spoke. He didn't search for her, because searching would mean admitting she had chosen. And she had, not out of fear, but out of clarity. The fire had been bright, but light, steady, deliberate light, lasted longer. She looked up from the papers, met Tae-joon's gaze across the table. He smiled, small, private. She smiled back. The ache was there, quiet, faint. A reminder that some chapters end not with explosion, but with a soft, final close. And she had written the ending herself. The meeting began. Voices rose, decisions were made, and Ji-yeon, once a piece in the machine, now helped decide how it moved forward. The city kept breathing, and so did she, whole, steady, enough.